Ready? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cartoons vs. Cancer. I am your host, the Gruppeteer, and we are back for the first time in 2018. A new year, a new me. I have a mustache now. Not really. And on today's episode, we have the amazing Aminder Dhaliwal, creator of the webcomic Woman World and Mild Inconvenience. Welcome to the show, Aminder.
Thank you. I love being introduced as the amazing. I've always aspired to be like Spider-Man.
Yeah. And of course, since Aminder isn't in the studio with us today, we have channeled her spirit, her mind, her body through this Paul Blart cutout. And I mean, I just found a WikiHow article on how to summon her to an interview. I mean, it was just draw a Paul Blart mustache and a Paul Blart cutout.
Now everyone will know.
It was really simple, actually. It was a bit. And of course, Cartoons vs. Cancer is always helping benefit innovative cancer research, specifically my good friend Madeline Carlson's remission, which is happening in the last few months. So if you're interested in helping that cause, please check the link below, and there will be a donation link. And so let's start the ball. Let's start the ball rolling, I guess, with an essential question: which one is better, Paul Blart 1, Paul Blart 2?
Oh, well, this will be easy for me to answer because I have not seen Paul Blart 2.
Paul Blart 2?
I assume with how Paul Blart 1 went that it has to be Paul Blart 2. That's the better one.
Fair enough, fair enough.
Yeah, I feel like at this point now that it's such a huge portion of my identity that I should watch it. But it's also fun, like, I kind of feel like one of the characters in my comics that I actually don't know enough about the world.
Right.
And even my memories on Paul Blart 1 are just, like, hazy at this point. And I'm just going off of, like, these vague, like, visuals I have.
If you had to give a prediction of what the summary of Paul Blart 2 was like, what would you think?
Oh, geez. Can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
Is it not in a mall anymore?
I think it is. I don't know if I've even seen it. I didn't prepare enough for this interview.
I remember the trailer. It was like him now, like leaving the mall to protect like the country or something.
Well, that's just cop at that point, isn't it? That's like mall cop.
Hey man, you shut your mouth.
I've not gone. I don't know what mall cops have to go through on a daily basis. I'll tell them that. I know, but they get some pretty sick segues. I'll tell them that much.
Yeah.
Where I live is outside of the Segway capital of the world in Manchester, New Hampshire. The inventor of the Segway, whose name escapes me, lives in Dean Kamen lives in Manchester, New Hampshire. So we get some pretty good I guess segues in here, more or less.
The center of Segway.
I am kind of sad I don't see them more often.
We'll send you one.
I kind of associate them with either Paul Blart or with Job from Arrested Development.
Yeah,
those are my two associations.
That's fair. That's fair enough. I just kind of associate them with people who just be riding around the mall. What do you think the real purpose of a mall cop is? How do you think that they even came to be the icon they are today?
Oh, well, mall justice, right? Like,
right.
I feel like you just have to take everything a cop deals with, but keep adding mall in front of it. Mall murder,
mall,
right?
mall traffic incidents. You never know.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever really even seen a real mall cop out and about. I don't go into enough malls. They kind of like scare me.
Well,
so many people.
Mall cop is such an essential part of Woman World, and I guess that's where we'd like to start off today. Woman World, for those who don't know, probably should check out Miss Dhaliwal's page. It's Aminder D on Facebook, Twitter, all that jazz. Is this comic about a world where women are the only people that exist? It's usually about 9 to 10 panels long. They're all sort of nice-looking drawings, sort of a bit minimalist and all that. And comparing it to one of your earlier works, Mild Inconvenience, I was wondering how the transition from Mild Inconvenience, which is this more detailed artistry, goes to the more minimalist yet still charming images of Woman World.
That's a good question. I feel like every comic I've had kind of aspires a different look in my brain, just the same way as any cartoon would. And originally when I came up with Woman World, I had so many ideas all at once that I was drawing them really fast and I was coming up with comics really fast. And this shorthand I'd kind of used in my brainstorming ended up being the final look. But with Mild Inconvenience, I always knew where the story was going. And because I was kind of doing an ode to actual Death Note, I was like, if I'm going to do it right, I should do it a little more detailed and make it look, I mean, it doesn't look anywhere near like as amazing as Death Note, but
yeah,
I got to get a little closer.
That's fair enough. And I'd love to know where the idea of Woman World came from.
That one? Okay, so last year in 2017 I went to the women's march, and it was really cool. It was really fun, and there were a lot of like really funny signs and stuff, and I was walking around. I had a great time, and then later that night, me and a bunch of friends who had went, most of my friends started posting their signs and pictures from the day, and they started getting a lot of like hateful comments, and that's when the idea started coming together, because I had seen so many "the future is female" like just signs that day, that it slowly started forming there, and I kept playing around with it until I kind of started pitching it to a couple of friends. I actually, in the book, which is coming out in September, the last page is the text message exchange to my friends, where I kind of pitched to them the rough idea, and they just kept telling me, like, yeah, go for it, do it.
Was that a potential way to advertise your book? What does this say about a potential release in September?
Oh, it's so great that you asked so naturally. Coming to stores on the date I hate saying, September 11th, is my book, Woman World. And you can actually pre-order it right now from wherever you like to pre-order things, whether it be Amazon or your local bookstore, or Indiegogo, or oh wait, it didn't say Indiegogo, but IndieBound is what I meant, which is your local bookstores. Or you can literally go up to your local bookstore and ask them to just get it on their shelves, and they can pre-order it.
If you are
it'll be it's, if you've seen all the comics on the Instagram page, it's all of those kind of put together, drawn, actually drawn a little better and like updated and reformatted with new content.
And if you're interested in that, there will, after the interview, be a link in the description where you can find the pre-order, probably on Amazon is what we'll do. So you said that you went back and you looked over the original drawings you did. Did you see maybe a change in your style when you were even looking at the same comic you were working on? Not even, the different entirety of, Mild Inconvenience, but just early Woman World strips?
Yeah, I think if you do take a look, you can see they started off really, really rough and slowly became a little more refined. Even just the change in how the font and like stuff looks, it gets better as it goes along. And when I look back at them, if I see the dates, I can kind of tell like what was happening in my life and or where I was working, and if I had more free time or less, I kind of get a gauge on that.
So you've said that the idea for Women World came with the women's marches and all this activism, but where do you think that the visual style came from?
I think that is definitely just my default. I'm a storyboard artist by day, or a director currently, and so I'm doing a lot of storyboarding, and that's a lot of just quick short form drawing, and that is what I'm used to, is like this just very bare basics, like only put down what needs to be there to tell the best version of whether it be a joke or a story moment. And so that is usually where my storyboards would start. And in the storyboard process, I would then go to a cleanup stage, but I chose not to do that with the comics.
That's very interesting. Say, storyboards, animation, purpose of this show. You wouldn't happen to have any idea that maybe Woman World would be turned into an animated property one day, would you?
Oh, I would love that. And I mean, I can't say much about it, but I am actively working on a different version currently of Woman World, or at least just a different part of the world as well, which is why I've kind of had to do this break from the comics. Although, I mean, I had planned to do 100 which I think it got to like 103 or something always, but now I'm doing like a slightly different take on the entire world. So when I have more to say about that, I totally will post it.
I like that. So if we go back before there was Woman World, before there was Sanjay and Craig, there was life in Ontario, Canada, and eventually you found your way to, I hope I say it right, Sheridan College in the non-existent state of Wyoming. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind telling us your journey from Canada to a state that actually doesn't exist for our viewers who aren't from America. Wyoming isn't a state, but Aminder might insist that it is.
So I was in high school and I was kind of struggling trying to pick what I wanted to do. I knew there was a huge portion of me that wanted to go into the arts, but I hadn't really thought about animation as like a viable option. I feel like I genuinely there's two kinds of people, either kids who have grown up knowing that animation jobs exist, or kids like me who grew up thinking, I don't know how those things get made, but like, I guess there's probably people behind them, but I have no idea about that world. So I was coming out of high school thinking I'll go into graphic design or like some sort of, a little bit skew off into the illustration world. And then I knew Sheridan had a animation program, and I decided to apply because it was fairly close to where I lived, and it was it's quite renowned. So I applied, and I happened to see that they had an introductory talk. So I went up to the animation talk, and I was kind of convinced in that moment that this is what I want to do. In that talk, they described what the animation process was, and it was kind of like someone finally put that last piece of the puzzle, and I understood what I had always wanted to do and where all the worlds collided of storytelling, of drawing, just getting to tell less so than a live action film where you're anchored to the real world, telling a story through pictures and having it moving rather than comics. So I'm in this talk. There's the head of the animation department there, who's a big guy with a big beard. And he talks about how he was, I believe he was an assistant animator on Beauty and the Beast. And he had animated Belle's sections. And he slowly just like got into a pose and started acting like her. And he's like this huge guy with a beard. And it was amazing to me to see him transform like that. And that was the moment I knew. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do for sure. I don't want to go into graphic design. And I kind of pivoted. And I ended up at Sheridan Animation. And then I was really lucky enough that Nickelodeon came by in my final year, and was talking about their internships. And I interviewed, got an internship at Nickelodeon, came down to Burbank for the summer of 2011. And after my internship, I got hired.
Nice. And what was, I'm assuming that was on Sanjay and Craig, right?
No, that was on a show called Robot and Monster. That was, I think Sanjay and Craig was just had maybe put out their pilot. Like, that's about it. Or it was maybe still in development.
I don't know too much about Robot and Monster. That was a CGI show, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. So I worked on it as an intern at first, and the crew was amazing and really, really nice, and there were some really like insanely talented people on it. In fact, actually, Sam Levine was a director on it, who then created Pen Zero. Darren Nefsey was a revisionist on it, who then went and created Star. Chris Houghton was on it, who has just announced Big City Greens. It was amazing how many talented people were actually on that crew, who then went off to do all these crazy things. The show and the time that I got there was canceled maybe just like 3 months after I started. So it was a big wake-up call to me about how the business works. And I then jumped onto Fairly Odd Parents season 9 to do revisions, because that just happened to be starting. So I did a season of revisions on that before jumping over to Sanjay and Craig, where I started as a revisionist for I think 2 weeks, and then went to storyboards, and then eventually ended up directing on.
Very interesting. Tom D from Michigan would like to know, was it always part of your plan to write female-oriented pieces of media?
Um, that's a good question. It wasn't ever, honestly, I never thought it out like that. I just write what I know. And I have time and time again found myself with like just all female cast or mostly female cast. It just happens to be the way I skew. Even like when I was a kid, it was mostly like women I was drawing. I feel like quite often that happens with artists is like there's like seems to be like either you grow up drawing like dudes in your sketchbook or it's women, and it's like somehow you just like fall into like those categories. So I've always just been like a female driven stories is where I've fallen.
One thing that, like I said, this is the first episode we've had in 2018. So in Hollywood news, we've missed just a little bit. And I don't want to get too touchy about anything, but recently there's been this open note letter to a lot of executives in the animation industry. I'm afraid that I actually don't know if you were part of it or not.
Yeah, I signed it, yeah.
Oh, nice, cool. Which was more about wanting to see more representation of women in the workplace, in addition to other things in the workplace that we don't have to worry about right now.
Right.
But one thing that I'm interested in is, do you think that, I know you say the future is female, do you think that there is, with shows like Owl City being picked up right now, Owl House rather, not the band Owl City, with shows like Owl House being picked up and people like, you know, Rebecca Sugar going on to have amazing careers in animation, do you think that this industry of animation is starting to gear towards more towards letting more women take leadership roles?
I hope so. Yeah, like considering that you have all these shows being announced, or someone as prolific as like Rebecca Sugar, like just continuing to be a badass. It's still a really like it's not balanced at all.
Yeah.
So I hope it continues down that trend. There happens to be a problem in animation where there's a really nice amount of thought that goes into representation on screen. And so you will get very diverse characters as your leads. And sometimes that isn't, that practice isn't put into place for all the people behind the screen who are actually making the shows. And you'll find that the shows skew either like mostly men, even though like the actual show itself has, you know, a balanced cast.
Yeah.
So it's just hopefully something that changes with time. And I feel like even just in my career so far, I've seen it's gotten so much better.
That's good. Would you say that maybe there would be a correlation between more diverse people on screen and maybe making a more diverse workplace, or do you think that they're just two different worlds?
I genuinely, I can't tell. I feel like it has a lot to do actually with the audience and what they demand. If you watch a more diverse show with like a huge cast of characters from all backgrounds, then the studios notice that. The studios will then put more money into putting more shows like that on screen. So it's a rhythm. They go hand in hand, and I don't know which one came first.
Interesting. I like that insight. That's something that I don't think I've ever heard anybody on this show say before, that it's not reflected on screen. Interesting. In the comments, and kind of to get back to what we were saying before, Michael would like to know what it was like working on Sanjay and Craig, and sort of how you led up to. I'm assuming that we can at least say that you're working on Owl House, right? That's okay to say?
Yeah, okay. We can say that.
But what was it, Sanjay and Craig to Owl House? What was that journey like?
Oh, I mean, Sanjay and Craig was amazing. I worked with so many great people on that show. I'm really happy with every show I've worked on. It's been amazing people. So Sanjay and Craig, so I can go through my actual like work history if that's what was it, Michael?
Yeah.
That's what they mean. I was on Sanjay and Craig, and they it was, I could say it's luck, but I shouldn't. It was just like the timing of it worked out for me, and I had been working hard for a while. They had a storyboard position open, so I jumped over. And since Sanjay and Craig was a board-driven show, I got to really start learning how to write dialogue and write, just like kind of exercise that side of my brain that I hadn't really had to use before. And that was really exciting. And eventually I ended up directing on the show. And I was mostly working with my board partner, Josh Angle, who we were partnered for a pretty long time together because they were really happy with the episodes we made. After that, after Sanjay and Craig, there was another show at Nickelodeon that I jumped onto, which I believe has been announced, but it's not currently on the Nickelodeon channel. It's not yet up. It's called Pinky Malinky.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over there and I was storyboarding for a while, and that's a really fun show. I had a really great time working on that one as well, and a lot of familiar faces. And then I actually jumped ship and I moved away from Nickelodeon over to Cartoon Network, and I worked on JG Quintel's new show. I don't know if they've announced it. I think they've announced the name.
No, that's the one on TBS, right?
Yeah, the TBS show.
They've announced it. I don't remember the name. I really should.
Okay, they haven't. Yeah, it's called Close Enough.
Yep.
And it was a really fun experience to delve into primetime and an adult audience. If only for like a season, because that's all I did there before I jumped over to Disney. It was, again, just such a great experience. And it was really nice to also just jump over to Cartoon Network and get like just have a refreshing moment in terms of a new company, meet new faces. I had been at Nickelodeon since I was an intern, and it felt so much like home that it was kind of like I graduated from high school and I needed to step away just for a moment and get some other life experience. Otherwise, I'd love to go back to Nickelodeon eventually, but it was good for me to get out and like see the rest of the animation world.
And I think at this point you really completed the trifecta, because now you work at Disney TVA down in Glendale.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you, and again, I know I have to be careful about the details of the show, but is there a way that you, or rather, would you mind telling us how you got into the Owl House, sort of team, more or less?
Funny enough, it goes to show how much social media, I guess, starts to matter. But I've known Dana for a really long time. I've been really impressed with watching her go through the process of developing a show and getting it greenlit. But I've known her when I was in college. She was just one of those Tumblr blogs I followed, and we would I think we messaged a couple times. Mm-hmm. So we actually knew each other, and when we were both in LA, I think we ran into each other at events and stuff, and then just the timing worked out that I got to come to Owl House and now work with her again, because we had never actually worked on the same show.
Is she, I assume she's familiar with your work on Woman World and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing when we had Carl Greenblatt, Chowder, and Harvey Beeks on the show, he explained the importance of getting yourself out on social media, maybe, showing your art, getting your art out to the world. And it seems that your approach to that is maybe socialize with people, other artists, and maybe that can lead to interesting opportunities. Would you say that you sort of promote that philosophy?
Yeah, I'm most of my jobs have gotten from testing, from actually being in the studios, and I really do think social media matters a lot. But I've kind of factioned off my social media presence is more of a comics presence, not as much as animation. Even I don't think my Instagram bio even says that where I work. I did just post my first image for Owl House, but the bio doesn't say where I work. I try and keep that kind of separate. But I know for sure on Harvey Beeks that Carl's entire approach to staffing up, I know his board team for sure, was going on social media and finding people whose voice kind of connected with his. And I really respect that.
Nice.
I think it's a great approach to finding new people as well, and just new looks. And rather than kind of getting, you see the same people every day, and you forget that there's so many new faces that would also like to get in. So it's kind of nice to get away from just the studio life and go online and see who's making what in another country, in another place, just all over the world.
It's interesting that you bring up diverse creators and all that, because there's been a controversy, more or less, in the animation world the last few days. It's not exactly one that's very exciting, but it's a controversy nonetheless.
Is this Thundercats?
The Thundercats roar, not even pilot, just images, more or less, have surfaced throughout the internet. Yourself not being a alumni of California Institute of the Arts, like most people, I wouldn't say most people in the industry, but a large portion, maybe an unproportional amount of people in the industry work at CalArts, and there's been this, or went to CalArts, and there's been this term thrown around lately, the CalArts face, or the CalArts style, more or less, that a lot of people are criticizing, a lot of people are defending. As somebody who is, from an outsider's perspective, got their education from a completely different place, would you say that such criticisms are warranted just on the style, nothing about the actual show itself?
No, I think it's just plain mean. It's just really untrue. I think it comes back to, from a studio, I don't know enough about Thundercats, but like from a completely business perspective, if you're Mr. Business and you're sitting in your Mr. Business office, like you see the shows that are popular, you want to make more of them, right?
Yeah.
So sure, the style gets a little saturated, but that happens constantly. That's happened like every decade. You get too much of one style until a new show comes in and breaks that. I'm really sad that people have given it that name. That's very specific, to call it the CalArts style or CalArts face. I feel like DreamWorks went through it as well with, like, what is it, the DreamWorks face, like the one eyebrow up, one eyebrow down. Yeah. Everyone's got, like, apparently their face. I don't think that's accurate. Everything I see from CalArts is so refreshing, so different. I think it's really unfair to call it that way. I'm also, like, really shocked at how intense the backlash has been to that.
Oh my God. So, it has been, you'd think they picture, put a picture of Muhammad on the, it's insane. No, it really is. Our editor doesn't know because she doesn't know what a Thundercat even is. But, like, guys watching, if this is some video that's gonna, like, survive in 5 years and you guys find it and you have no idea what all this controversy is about, people straight up are gonna, like, take pitchforks and fires to the street with the way they're reacting to this. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, I haven't actually gotten involved myself, but I so often go to social media to, like, take a break from work. So it really sucks when I go onto Twitter and, like, that's all I'm seeing.
I don't, like, because I've seen the pictures. Again, I don't think there's a pilot out, but I've seen the stills and all that. It looks fine. I think they're going for a more sort of Ghibli style of the the Thundercat characters. Obviously saves a lot on animation if you've seen the original show. It's just a new show. It's just somebody's new interpretation.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's really sad, I think, when people are so quick to knock something which isn't even out. There's, like, such a fun stage on any show I've worked on where I've been on from the first season. It's so wonderful before the show is out. Like, that sense of community on the crew, just like this, before this fear of putting your product out and waiting for the reactions. Because people have a habit nowadays of really singling out, like, almost like searching the credits, I guess, to single out someone they don't like on a crew or whatever. They just find a way to find them. It's not something I ever grew up with, so it's very strange to me.
Between you, me, and everybody who has public access to this video, I think that they don't like what Cartoon Network did with Teen Titans Go. Your opinion's your opinion, but they don't want to see the same thing happen to a different property, Thundercats, whatever it's going to be next. It's just...
Right. I think one of my favorite things when I was at Cartoon Network was, I don't know how many of their new shows have premiered, but one of the really cool things was they had so many things in development that were so just complete different spectrums in terms of design, storytelling. They were just really different from one another, and it was really cool to me to imagine that one network could have all these shows, that you could turn on something on Cartoon Network and both like something 1 hour and then the next hour hate something. I thought that was really cool that could even exist. So I hope just like we just start saturating the market with even more shows, different styles, so that there's something for everyone.
I think people really forget that, like, this year, or since we last had an episode, I guess actually, Cartoon Network has put out like Craig of the Creek, which I think is great. This great hearty cartoon. They've given way to Infinity Train, which is coming soon. This great adventure cartoon. I think they're choosing to focus on the one sort of sour apple in their minds over a nice tree, I guess.
Right.
What a perfect
There's
analogy.
so many great shows there.
What a perfect analogy.
And so many more to come.
That there is. In the comments, somebody's asking, did you work on Clarence?
Clarence? No, I didn't. I wish. That's a great show. I'm trying to think of where. I probably was still on Sanjay and Craig when Clarence was being picked up. But no, I love that show though.
That answers that. They're not all philosophical.
Yeah, I can't unfortunately work on everything.
Yeah. So one thing that I just lost is my train of thought, and I was about to launch into another point. And okay, I remember what I was gonna say. Excuse me. And so one thing, you're mentioning all these new shows coming out and all that. I know you're a busy woman. You're making shows, you're making comics, yada yada. But I was wondering if there are any shows, maybe animated shows on the network right now or on the market right now that you yourself are enjoying a lot.
That's a good question. You mean children's animated shows?
Or adult animated shows. Maybe you like anime and all that.
Loved Agretsuko on Netflix. That was amazing.
Yeah, I can agree. I can agree. And I love
animated show I watched.
I love that it comes from the Hello Kitty company too. That just makes it 10 times better.
It's one of those shows where it kind of like, going back to that whole Thundercats thing that happened. It's just like I saw the thumbnail on Netflix and I was like, I don't know. Yeah. And then I was like, before I knew, I was like 8 episodes deep, being like, this is my life now.
I think it really gets you with that surprise element of just I guess the first note of the theme song just gets everybody.
Yeah. Other than that, for a while, I used to watch almost all the shows that were on. Mm-hmm. But I kind of had to stop doing that because, like, a lot of times it's like they're like my friends' shows. Like, mm-hmm. Right before I went over to Cartoon Network, I was still watching Steven Universe, and then my office was like right next to the Steven Universe crew, and like my first day I went to go print something, and I went to the printer, and there was like a clear spoiler on like the printer, and I was like, oh yeah, I should probably stop being so invested in these shows because this is like my day job, and I'm gonna see all of these, like I'm gonna see everything that will happen. So I've kind of like taken a step back. It's the same with like I would love to watch all of Star, but I just feel like I'm gonna take a breather, kind of like just wait and like just for now, like I'm friends with Darren. I don't also need to be her fan.
Yeah, I'm afraid that I haven't watched Star, at least not the second season. I gotta be careful with what I say sometimes with my opinions on shows because sometimes I'm talking to their creators.
Well, I mean, it doesn't, like, Star has a huge fan base, so I'm sure if you're not watching it, it's fine.
Yeah. Maybe some animated movies that have came out lately that have sparked your interest?
Animated movies. What has come out recently? I feel like something hasn't come out for a while.
You're right, actually. I can't think of anything.
I really loved last year Captain Underpants. I thought that was really good.
God, like David Soren.
It was amazing. And I really wasn't expecting it to be like as amazing as it was. I walked in kind of like sometimes watching animated movies and shows feels like part of the job. So I walked in with that kind of emotion and I loved it. I loved every moment of it. And I was like just recommending it to everyone I knew.
I saw Captain Underpants on my 17th birthday. I was the only person in the entire theater because everyone was seeing Wonder Woman. I laughed the entire movie. I was the loudest person in the theater. I was the only person in the theater. It was just a great experience all around.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
And he read every book 5 times when he was a kid.
You're embarrassing me on my show. Don't listen to her. But
so it worked for you even as like, did you actually read them?
no, yeah, my bookshelf right over there, next to
really?
next to a copy of The Art of War, actually has all 9 Captain Underpants books.
Because I went in blind, like I've never like known the franchise, and I loved it, and so it's really nice to hear that you, as someone who has actually like followed it, also loved it.
It's great. I don't know how I'd recommend it to somebody who's over the age of 10, but if you
That's
ever,
all I've been doing.
yeah, if you ever like, with kids or something, definitely a good book to give them. It's very funny. They're very funny. They're all very funny. There's like 9 or 10. There's a lot.
Oh wow.
He's prolific.
He's a prolific author. Someone in the comments has asked, what do you personally do?
I did think, sorry, I have another movie, The Breadwinner. That was also fantastic, and that was around the same time, I believe.
And actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we were talking about women in the animation industry. I hope I don't say her name wrong. Nora Twomey, who works with Cartoon Saloon in Ireland, has been making great strides with just this track record of amazing movies lately with, The Breadwinner, The Song of the Sea, The Secret of Kells.
They've been amazing. I love Cartoon Saloon. That movie, was just fantastic. I would have said Nora Toomey, but I don't know either. So.
Toomey. I think
it has a W, but it's pronounced Toomey.
It's pronounced Toomey. Well, this is why we have an editor, ladies and gentlemen.
This is why I'm here.
She's from Cork County, Ireland, the same place as your family.
She's from the same place as my family in Ireland. Look at that. We learn something new every day.
It's a conversation starter.
So somebody in the comments would like to know, what do you personally do to get inspired creatively?
I don't know if there's something that I specifically do. I feel like most of the day is my brain having too many thoughts going through it anyway. So it's more or less like having to just like use the weed whacker to get through all my thoughts to find something which might actually translate to another human being and like they would relate to in some way.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a ritual or anything that I do. I do think it's like pretty important to like in terms of storyboarding rather than comics to like get a good warm up in there and allow yourself to make mistakes, I guess. Don't get too hung up on things. That's pretty general advice though. Yeah,
but if it works, it works. If it works, it works.
Yeah, there we go.
Speaking of going back to your presence on social media, that's where you can find all of her comics. It's also where you can find just a slew of pictures of Aminder and her foster dogs, right? You foster dogs?
Yeah, I foster dogs from one of the local rescues in LA, and they've been really, really nice to me, and I love working with them. I actually think I'm going to be adopting this dog. My last foster, her name's Dita Von Cheeseburger, and she's been so easy. She's such an easy dog, and she's an older little lady, and we're thinking we'll just keep her because it's kind of sad. We fostered other dogs, and sometimes when they're good looking, people will take them even if they have personality problems. But Dita Von Cheeseburger is not the best looking dog. She does not photograph that well, but she's amazing. She's like completely trained. She's like a fantastic dog, and not that many people have been interested. So we're just like, why don't we just keep her?
Well, I've got to know, what do you look for in a dog?
I am so much more about like the uglier the better. Like, while everyone's like, just like pulling up puppy pictures and stuff, I love when dogs just look as stupid as possible. Those are my favorites. I have I'm just more into senior dogs as well.
Right.
My dog, before I started fostering, he was 13 before he passed away, and I just love when they're like so old that all they really want to do is sleep and like cuddle. It's just like something I relate to, I feel.
That's understandable. I like that. That's nice. How did you get involved in the foster dog community? I guess is what you call it.
How did I? I don't know. I had wanted to foster for a while. I really don't know. I guess I just like looked them up and asked. I started following them on Instagram, and it's called A Purposeful Rescue. And then I like submitted to be a potential foster, and like before I knew it, I was like indoctrinated into the world of foster dogs. And it's like pretty easy. Like I've always had dogs, so it's never been an issue for me.
Like that. Well, I mean, good on you for being part of the cause, foster dogs and all that. Good job.
Yeah, I love them. They're all so weird. I love it. They've got so much personality.
Do you have, say, a special memory you'd like to share of us with maybe you and a foster dog?
We had one foster dog who had aggression issues, and he just like hated humans and dogs, but I don't know how he picked which ones he didn't like, because some people he was fine with, some dogs he was fine with. And we decided we would take him to the dog park, and we would keep him leashed and just like kind of do like a walk around, just to kind of get an idea of maybe like find a pattern of what he didn't like. And someone walked up to us in the dog park, which was like our local dog park, and was like, "Is that Buddy, the dog?" And we're like, yeah. And they're like, "But you're not his owners." And we're like, "What? He's our foster." And they're like, "Oh, his owner used to come here all the time. Like, we recognize this dog." And they were just like, he used to just let him off leash, and he would just attack our dogs. And like, we like hated this dog. And so it was like really random that we just happened to take him back to his like old stomping grounds. It was like super strange. And I had always wanted to go back and like meet his former owner to be like, "Dude, what were you doing?" Like,
just sicked him on other people's dogs.
Yeah. So apparently, like, when after we fostered him, all he needed was to go into actual training class, and then he was fine. He was totally like a normal dog after that. He's just never been taught to not do that.
So would you say that you're obviously a dog person, but do you have other pets, cats, fish, other parrots? I don't know.
Lizards.
I've only ever had dogs. I had a goldfish growing up. I think we had two, and one of them once jumped out of the bowl into the garbage.
You're lying. My fish did that too. She
Really?
doesn't believe me. No, because she did it twice, and she'll back me up on this.
It's true.
Some of them are so suicidal.
That's what we
like,
called it.
They have
suicide
nothing.
fish.
They have nothing to be miserable about. They live a perfect life. They sit in the
That was
tank.
the moment I gave up on fish.
They sit.
There's too much to unpack here. I'll just go with a simpler, less suicidal animal like a dog. So since then, that's all it's been.
We had 3 fish. All right, one for me, my brother, my sister, and we put them all in different tanks, or little bowls actually, if anything. And one of them just passed away, and so our genius editor over here thought it'd be a great idea to put them both in the same bowl. So one devoured the other and then jumped out of the tank as if like to cover up its own tracks.
Apparently they were fighting fish, and I didn't know.
Fighting fish. You look into these things.
Well, you think like the fish couldn't live with itself, that it had done that?
I don't know.
I guess
It devoured the other and died of loneliness.
this is very moral fish.
It knew if we caught it. I mean,
I would love to bring in a therapist and just like talk through these actions.
I might have to talk to him myself.
It doesn't have anything to be upset about. It sits in a bowl. It swims around. I'd love that life. Don't do anything. You got to worry about when your next meal's coming, and not even then. Like if you're a fish in the ocean, you got to worry about sharks. If you're a fish in a bowl, you don't have to worry about anything.
To feed you.
You just have to worry about not jumping out of the tank. Hey, this is all.
Sorry, we digress.
I just had to get that out of my system. That's been deep rooted in there for a long time.
I'm guessing like the entire premise for Finding Nemo came from a conversation like this.
Right?
You're really suicide. That's probably why.
This is where you guys get your inspiration. Talking to other artists.
In the comments, I run a serious show. In the comments, this is something that you might not know the answer to, but Do you happen to know if the creators of Sanjay and Craig are making a new show for TBS?
Oh, I don't know. Or yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm a bit embarrassed to say I don't know who's the creator of Sanjay and Craig.
It's Jay Howell and Jim Dershberger.
No,
Jay Howell made, I mean, I guess one of the things he's most famous for is he did the original designs for Bob's Burgers.
Oh, very good.
So you can see that similarity between Sanjay and Craig and Bob's Burgers.
So we were talking about more recent shows you might be into, more recent animated movies. But of course, what's really sort of led you on this path, besides Fat Men Dancing to Beauty and the Beast, what's led you on this path to become an animator is assumingly other people's works, movies, animated shows you've seen. Are there any animated shows, animated movies, from America, from any other country, that have really sort of driven you to, make some of the art you have, really inspired you?
I'm not sure if I could answer right if any of them had inspired me to make my work. But in terms of just my favorite stuff growing up, it was a lot of I was obsessed with Aladdin. I had such a huge crush on Aladdin.
I had a crush on the genie.
You had what?
I had a crush on the genie.
Of course, it was it was just a beautiful movie and really different looking from some of the other stuff they were doing. And then TV wise, I was always into Hey Arnold, and I think that kind of speaks to a lot of my humor. It's not mean spirited, that show. I don't think most of my humor is mean spirited. I try not to make jokes at the expense of anyone else. I was always, I was watching Recess. I was into those, I guess there was maybe a phase of just big school cast, those just those school shows. I was super into all of those. But I don't know if any of them were specific to molding my voice. I think that came more from watching just adult primetime TV shows where I kind of find my humor.
Oh, what would some of those shows be?
I'm a huge Community fan. Arrested Development is my life. Just there's something strange about these shows where Arrested Development, I don't think anyone can do that kind of humor, the Rube Goldberg machine of humor, like Mitch Hurwitz can. And then on Community, I've always just been a big fan of Dan Harmon's voice and his strange, weird storytelling. And that show was almost it was almost animated, but it was real people. It was a really crazy show.
Hearing that you like Dan Harmon, assumingly, I think you're a fan of Rick and Morty as well.
Oh yeah, of course. That show is amazing. They're doing things I've never seen before.
And Kanye might even be in one of the new episodes. I don't know if you've heard about this. Kanye West, Twitter star, Kanye West, brother to dragons, Kanye West himself. I think he commented on the renewal of the new episodes of Rick and Morty. He just went on this slew about how Rick and Morty is the greatest show he's ever seen. How it has this great insight into the world that a lot of people don't see.
I'm surprised at how often that happens, where a star will mention something on Twitter about a show they like, and then they'll end up as a guest star. A lot of people think it's a little more official and professional behind the scenes, where the agents were reached out to beforehand. But I know on Sanjay and Craig, Anthony Bourdain was in an episode, and it was literally because I think he had tweeted he liked watching the show with his kids, and then the follow 2 weeks later he was doing a voice.
I think even Snoop Dogg was on Sanjay and Craig at one point.
Yeah, I worked on that episode.
Oh really? What? You didn't happen to meet Snoop Lion himself, did you?
Oh, I wish. No, he was recording in, I believe, from New York.
Oh.
So I didn't, but I do like to tell people that I wrote for him because he was, reading. I should not write rap for him.
Yeah.
But I got to do that.
To be a writer is to create stories that inspire people. but I must know if you had to do some research on maybe Snoop's discography, or maybe the way that he talks to write for him.
You would be surprised at how many videos I have still on my computer from when we got that outline. We would practice freestyle rapping just to kind of get in the zone, and I have so many terrible videos of myself, Brian Mann, who I was working with at the time, and our supervising director, Matt Lazell, just all of us trying to make words rhyme. It was terrible.
Well, I'll be a nice host and not start a beat right now that'll make you rap too. But I hear that you're interested in Hey Arnold. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that you and Craig Bartlett are. I see him comment on a lot of your posts on Instagram and all that. So here's your chance, I guess, not to say something mean about him. But I assume you've seen the Jungle movie. Did you? Have you?
Yeah, of course.
And did it satisfy?
Oh, completely. I actually just watched it really recently. I almost like had been protecting myself from that world ending. You know what I mean? Like I kind of loved living in the void of like that open ending. That I didn't watch it when it came out. And partially, I mean, I don't quite know like when Nickelodeon puts things on where. So I just kind of missed it when it came out, and I watched it super recently. Let me check something. Yeah, because I love that world. I had been like away long enough that I like didn't recognize some of the storylines or some of the inside jokes, but I had rewatched it maybe like 6 years ago now, and it was just really nice to get like an ending that like my young self had always wanted.
Yeah.
It was really great.
I personally enjoyed it a lot too. But it seems that you, with Recess, with Hey Arnold, really enjoy the sort of down to earth, more realistic cartoons.
Oh, okay. I was just checking. Yeah, my another one of the people working on Owl House, Stu Livingston. I was just checking that he had actually announced he's working on Owl House. He co-directed the Hey Arnold movie. Oh. So it was when we started working together, I was like, how have I not watched it yet? I have to talk to you about it. So that's when we went and watched it.
Nice. But it does seem that you're more interested in the down to earth, the more reality based cartoons. Is that something that maybe speaks to just sort of the way you see the world?
Yeah, I really love shows that are just like sweet and nice. There's just something like lovely about that world, which I mean, I don't really remember having a hard time in school or anything, but it really spoke to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Just these characters were very genuine and sweet and kind. There's not many main characters, many leads who their personality, like the main thing in their personality is their kindness. There's only like a few. Most of them have great leadership skills. That's what makes them a main character. But Arnold is one of the few. I actually think, I guess Harvey Beaks would be like, the other one. But that's a really rare main character. And I really just love that genuineness and sweetness.
I always, I myself gravitated towards those. Although, if anything, I'd say Charlie Brown probably clicked the most with me in that sort of.
Right.
Yeah. But there's definitely a sense, because I'll talk about how much I love Samurai Jack all day, but in the end of the day, I can't relate exactly to, samurai running through the jungle, cutting the heads off of robots. I can relate to, the kid who sort of goes home at the end of the day, Bart Simpson maybe gets an F on his paper trying his best or something like that.
Yeah, I'm the same. I love Samurai Jack. Just like watching that is just pure like visual goodness. It's just like visual candy. It's so amazing to take in, and it's amazing to see how much you can strip back from a storyline and just get to a character want to tell a story. Just like, okay, he's going after this. He's trying to get from A to B. That's our storyline, and we're going to make it as pretty as possible. It's really beautiful to see that, but ultimately, for me, like the Hey Arnolds of the world, those sweet stories that like you think back on years later, those are the ones that stick with you, right?
Yeah, I think so. And unfortunately, we're just about wrapping up, Aminder. But before we go,
Cool.
I'd just like to ask if there are any young artists out there impressed by my Paul Blart mustache, as they should be. This is the makeup crew did this, which means me with a magic marker. It's washable. It's washable. Don't worry. That's how men shave. If there's anybody out there watching this who's looking to break into the animation industry, looking to break into entertainment, what advice would you give them?
I guess yeah, just keep making things. You're gonna get really busy when you do break in. But everyone like who really wants it hard enough will break in. But often you get so distracted by your day job that you stop making things outside of that. So get as much of that now while you're still looking, because the closer you get to finding your own voice, people seem to relate to your work a little more, and they get a better those people who seem to know themselves the best seem to find the jobs the fastest, I feel. They already know their voice, they know their strengths, their weaknesses, and they know what they kind of want out of their careers. And it's nice to get that up front rather than find that during your jobs to figure out like, oh wait, I should pivot. I kind of started off wrong. So I'd say, yeah, focus on your own art. Focus on making sure you have a voice, not that's unique, but just authentic to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aminder Dhaliwal is the creator of Woman World, Mild Inconvenience, and a slew of other shorter webcomics, all of which you can find on her Instagram page at Aminder _D. She's now working on the highly anticipated Disney TV show Owl House. Aminder, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Was there anything you'd like to say before we sign off?
Yeah, could you like make the face that you have on the Paul Blart like I feel like I haven't actually seen you look in that direction.
A tall order. Let's see. How can we?
Oh yeah, you really got that mustache down.
He's really sure of something. He's just really sure of what he's looking at.
He's thinking about lunch. You know it.
Both of his chins.
Both of his chins. Ladies and gentlemen, Women World will be available in book form come September. There will be a link to the Amazon in the description below. The next episode of Cartoons vs. Cancer will be determined. I will see you guys later. Please make sure to donate. And of course, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Hopefully it's not next year. Okay, goodbye. And